Good morning, everybody. Sounds like we're awake. Yeah, it's an honor to worship with everyone this morning and be here and just speak. Hope everyone's having a good summer. Like Todd said, we've got our timely rains. Everything's looking good. I pulled and sprayed a lot of weeds this summer, and wish I hadn't, but that's part of life. But yeah, the crops are looking really good. I thought I'd start by sharing a few stories. I got one about my own summer and one about youth. But we always do a youth retreat to kind of kick off the summer, and we go to Lilac Campground. And this year, end of June, we had a good crew of youth there again. And there was a group of, I think they were grade 9 boys. They had this dream of sleeping under the stars. And I get the sleeping under the stars thing, like in certain locations, but not in like RV parks, but we got to this place, like to me, I'm like, if I'm going to sleep under the stars, it's in a hammock somewhere in a nice location, right? But here we're in like this little gravel lot with RVs and so we get there and we all set up our tents, and these boys set up their sleeping bags. I went over and checked out their arrangement just because it looked real sad, but they had 3 sleeping bags and then pillows, and then their bags were just kind of, each guy's bag was kind of by the pillow. And I just wanted to see, because I was curious, I lifted up the pillow to see, like, did they put something underneath? And at least the one I picked up, it was just gravel right underneath their pillow. And I'm like, I can't imagine trying to sleep with my arm, and it's just gravel. But anyways, it was all set up. We were there for maybe an hour or so. And Vernon, Cindy, and Mom and Dad were busy cooking for the group. And it looked like good weather for the whole time. But it was kind of like now where these spotty showers just show up. And sure enough, this dark cloud came. We're like, oh, it kind of looks like rain. And it came quick. The wind came in, and all of a sudden it was pouring. And I was at the camper, and I'm just like imagining these guys, because all their stuff was sitting there. I'm like, I hope they got it out of there. And they didn't. It was all in the rain. I got the video later, and it was soaking wet. And those 3 guys, I just want to give it to them though. There was a laundromat at this campground, so the rest of the evening, while we were all doing our stuff, I was like, "Where are these guys?" Well, they were at the laundry machines, putting all their stuff in the dryer. They got it all dry. I don't know how much money they spent, $5 or $6, and they set their stuff back out on the gravel lot and slept under the stars for 2 nights. So if you see them, you can give them a hand. I don't know if they're here. I don't think they are, but whatever. That was funny. I think there's a few youth with videos of how that whole thing went down. And then I'll tell you a story about my summer before I get into my message. But it's been a good summer. We've kind of done our typical things. We're going camping and enjoying the weather. I like the lake. We spent a week at Killarney Lake, which was great. One thing that we did different this year is my boy Tyson joined 4-H Beef, the 4-H Beef Club. Is there any beef farmers in the audience? Rob, you used to have cattle. There's a couple cattle guys. Not many. Oh, there's James. Okay, you'll appreciate this. But my dad had a dairy growing up, so I kind of worked with animals a little bit, but he sold it when I was pretty young. And I wouldn't call myself an animal guy. And for sure my wife wouldn't call me an animal guy. But I'll just say this. If you think you are a calm, collected person, which I would consider myself, I learned that I'm not. I just had never owned a steer before. So me and Tyson owned this steer, and it tested my patience quite a bit. Now when I meet cattle farmers with a smile on their face, I really commend them, because I know they're faking it. Because it's a frustrating way to make a living. No, in all seriousness, we had a lot of fun, and I earned a lot of appreciation for cattle farmers. Now I guess me and Tyson are cattle farmers. We had 1 steer, but it's been a good summer. There's still lots left to enjoy. I want to start off by just going back to the psalm, actually, that Todd read. And I'll get my PowerPoint up there, Diane. Perfect. I called my message Smaller Barns this morning. It'll make more sense as I get into the passage. But Psalm 133, verse 1 says this: "How wonderful and pleasant it is when brothers live together in harmony. And that just kind of hit me as Todd read it this morning. When I went on holidays around this time of year, we grew up going to Detroit Lakes as a family. And I remember a couple things about Detroit Lakes. Number one is we were gone for some Sundays in summer, and my family, typically, we would find another church to go to. And in Detroit Lakes, we found this Vineyard Church that we went to south of the city there. And I remember attending in that church in summer about this time of year, and I was kind of brought back there this morning, or I was just thinking of that a little bit. And I remember sitting in the church. It was foreign to me. I was a guest in a group of this church. It was kind of similar to ours in some ways. And I remember just thinking about all the ways I wanted to fix my church when I got home, because I saw all these cool things this church did that was way better than mine. The way they sang, or their band, or maybe the way their certain things were set up. And I think it was a pretty immature way of looking at it. Well, for sure it was. But I remember just this, as I was worshiping this morning, I just thought of, the difference of how I long for this church to be fixed, and how I was just thinking this morning about how that wasn't my church. That wasn't the church I was called to. And how it's just beautiful to be together with my church family worshiping in harmony. And I think that psalm just puts it so nicely, how beautiful it is to live and worship in harmony. And that is my prayer for us as a family of believers. But it kind of gets me to the next thing I did when I was in Detroit Lakes. Often we would cruise around the lake, and we would look at all the cabins, and we would just criticize them. You're like, man, why did that guy do that? And we're looking at all these cabins like, man, one day I'm going to own that one, and I'm going to be sitting there. And we had, this talk about how when I owned this cabin one day, and it was a real thing, and maybe still is. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to start out today's talk by talking actually about that. I want to talk about retirement. I don't know if you guys knew this. I did this talk actually in youth this year, in this passage in Luke 12 that we'll be going through. But I don't know if you knew this, but there's a passage where Jesus, I think he really addresses retirement, especially in how we view it in our culture today. And so I want to start off today's message just by asking you, what do you dream of having in retirement? I'll give you 30 seconds. I want you to put yourself there. Maybe some of you are already there. You're living the dream. So you can just tell us about your life. But I want you to put yourself in that spot where you are retired, you have the dream life. What does this look like? Where are you? Who's with you? All right? Does anyone want to share their retirements? I'll tell you mine. I'm on a lake. I'm on a deck or maybe I'm on a deck overlooking the lake. It would be even better. There's a hot tub close to me if I get cold. But I'm not. I'm actually hot 'cause it's a nice day. There's a wood shop on the property. There's some riding stables close by. There's no steers on our The kids are there. They still enjoy being with me. I'm not an old grumpy man. I'm a nice guy. It's so hot, I'm sweating. I want to jump in the cool lake. It's a beautiful day. My only mission in life is to eat food and enjoy life and water ski, because I like water skiing. Doesn't that sound nice? Sounds pretty good. That's the place that I go. I don't know what your guys' retirements look like. I'm sure there's probably a lot of different stories. I remember when I asked the youth, there was a lot of different things depending on the way we're wired. But Jesus told a parable, I want to say, and he really addressed this retirement, this mentality of just dreaming of storing up wealth and riches. And the more I read it, the more I think this passage speaks so well to our culture. Culture has this inaccurate dream or ideas we strive for that isn't inherently bad, but it distracts us from the real dream. So today I want to talk to you about a story about a rich fool. It's a parable. It's a really short parable that Jesus told the crowds when he was on earth. And I think it's a parable that will be really applicable to us today. So we're going to read it together. If you want to follow along on the screen or turn to Luke 12, verse 13, it says this. Then someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me. So I'm just going to go through this verse by verse, but to help you get into the setting, Jesus, often where he went in ministry, especially this time, he was followed by crowds. This is no different. Jesus is addressing and teaching a crowd. It comes, I think a chapter before is the story of Mary and Martha, and he's in the Capernaum region, and he's teaching. He's teaching this crowd. And there's this guy that just has something on his chest that he needs to get off, and he's a heckler, really. Like Jesus, when you read through this, Luke 12, you'll see that Jesus is in the middle of the teaching, and then this guy's just kind of waiting for a time, and he's like, Jesus, over here. I'm ticked off with my brother, help us out. And it's like the parent in me here just hears my kids, Dad, tell my sister to stop, or Dad, Tyson bit me. I don't know. And we've been there, I think, back to when when I was a kid. You get to this spot with your sibling or with your friend and at school maybe, and you get to this spot where you need a third party. You need the adult to split up the fight. And that's where this brother's at. He's like, there's obviously an estate that is to be divided. This guy obviously feels in the right. And he's calling out to Jesus. He's like, life's not going the way I wanted it to. Jesus, I need you to speak some wisdom into my brother's life. And this brother sees an opportunity. Jesus, this wise teacher, surely he will take my side. And he probably just felt justified and right in the situation. And Jesus responds to him, and he says this. Jesus replied, Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that? Then he said, Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. Pretty interesting response. Like, I think this brother, he wouldn't have spoke up. He wouldn't have put himself out there if he didn't feel like super justified in the dividing of this estate. And Jesus just totally skirts the question. He's like, I'm not getting involved in that. I'm not the judge to tell you that you get this portion of your brother's land or whatever they were fighting about. But Jesus looks past that issue that they're talking about, and he sees an opportunity to teach. The quick lesson in one verse, he says, watch out for greed. Be on your guard against greed. Not only that, I find it interesting that he says every kind of greed. Did you know there are different kinds of greed? I don't know. I was like, what kind of different kinds of greed is there? I think greed is easy to recognize when you see it in the rich and famous. For me, I think of a cartoon I used to watch, DuckTales. There was this guy named Scrooge McDuck, and he was just the greedy guy. Like, that's all he did. He had his pile of money, and he just didn't let anyone else have even a coin, and he was just the epitome of greed. But greed isn't always that obvious. There are opportunities to be greedy every single day, in every single circumstance. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be Scrooge McDuck to be greedy. You can have very little, and you can be very greedy. And Jesus says, be careful of every kind of greed. Life is not measured by that. And he tells this brother, you are missing the point. You are way too focused on your father's estate. Jesus, as he often does, elaborates and makes this point to the brother with another story. So he doesn't just stop with this. He says, beware of greed. Tells the brother, okay, you're focused on the wrong thing. Beware of greed. Let me illustrate further. And he tells this short parable that we'll read through. Verse 16. Then Jesus told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Verse 18. So he called up Meridian. No, I'm just kidding. Verse 18. Everyone's awake. Then he said, I know. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Good plan, right? But we read on. Verse 20 says, God said to him, you fool, you will die this very night. Then you will get everything. Then who will get everything you work for? In verse 21, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. The end. It's quick and to the point. I love Jesus' parables. He's just like, there it is. There you have it. You're a fool to to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. If I were to read this story and stop at verse 19, you could almost say it's the American dream. It's the pathway to retirement. It's like this person made it. They had done so well in life. They invested in the right things. Life went good for them in a few ways. The crop was good this year. They built the right buildings. They were able to sit back and just enjoy life. The barns were full. This is a thought and a dream that as a world we celebrate. And the story takes a quick twist in verse 20. God says, "You fool. This way of thinking is foolish." And God says, it's not necessarily because of the wealth this particular man had, but rather what he was focused on in life. So what was foolish about the rich man's thinking? What's foolish about what the brother was trying to get Jesus to bring some wisdom to this estate fight? Why is God calling them foolish? Let's go a little deeper into that. And I think the first thing is pretty obvious, is they were blinded by greed in both situations. His primary focus was to take life into his own control and to store up as many treasures as he could. In the eyes of the world, he's wise, he made it. In God's eyes, he missed it. I was tempted to downplay greed in this passage. I didn't want to make this a message about greed. It's honestly, this verse 21 was the one that really kind of hit me and I want to speak a lot on, but I don't think I can just skip past this greed part. So I was thinking and listening to a few messages on greed, and a speaker I like to listen to put it this way. I think he put it nicely. He says, greed is a massive problem. Greed has inoculated our entire country. Greed has permeated through our whole world. We love stuff. The problem is stuff has mass has gravity, and our stuff ends up pulling us out of a right relationship with God. You see, the two brothers at the beginning that were in this debate about this estate, dividing their father's estate, especially the one speaking up, asking God to intervene, you can almost hear his heart. You can hear his heart yearning for more. You can hear him saying, once I get this half of the estate that I need and I'm free of my brother, then it's all going to be good. Or once I have my right and earned share, then it'll all be good. And I can put myself right in a situation. Our paths are always yearning for the next thing, the next paycheck, the next season, the next. And you can hear the brother's heart yearning for that. And I just relate because if I'm being honest with myself, I entertain the same kind of thoughts on a regular basis. I don't know how often I've taken these greedy, I need more thoughts and entertained them when I should have held them captive and made them obedient to the Lord's word. We yearn for stuff. We yearn for things when we have everything we need in our good shepherd. Jonathan Pokluda goes on to say this: the cure to greed is giving generously. The cure to greed is giving cheerfully, and the cure to greed is giving faithfully. It seems like the opposite of the cure. Like you give stuff away and it's like, no, that's what I needed. But now I got to give it away, God, or what? But if you want to battle greed in your life, you do that by giving. And I think no one puts it better than the psalmist in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I have all that I need. I've been parked on this verse this year and been speaking and looking at it a lot. But it's really just put that simple. The Lord is all we need. And I think this brings me to the craziest part of this text, and the part I want to talk a little bit more on is verse 21. God says this to the rich fool: a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. I think the crazy part is what the rich fool is trading. God puts a rich relationship with God in direct comparison to storing up earthly wealth. And let me say this. I know there are a lot of rich people with rich relationships with God. I know there are a lot of poor people with poor relationships with God. And I don't know that there's a direct correlation between the two. I don't think it's like this perfect correlated graph. But I do know that greed is a huge problem right across our world, right across different financial demographics and right across geographical locations. And Jesus shares this parable and he shares this story with these two brothers because he fears they're making a trade that is not worth it. A rich relationship with God. I read a story about a girl who loved art. She adored it. It was her favorite class. All her spare time, she drew, she painted. She read about people who drew. She read about people who painted. She watched YouTube videos about art. She studied art history. She was the art girl. One day, she got the chance of a lifetime, a fully paid trip to the Louvre Museum in Paris. Does anyone know what that museum is? Some people do, yes. She got a fully paid trip there. Her class had studied art history all year, and now she had the opportunity, and she was standing in the very halls that held the world's most famous paintings, including the Mona Lisa. But instead of exploring the gallery, she spent the whole day in the gift shop. She was fascinated by the keychains, the novelty pens, and the candy and Mona Lisa-shaped wrappers. By the time the bus was ready to leave, her backpack was full of trinkets, but she had never seen the real Mona Lisa, the wedding at Cana, or the stunning sculptures that generations had traveled across the world to witness. She went all the way to this treasure house of beauty and meaning, and she came home with a pencil sharpener. The point of the story, this student had an incredible opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The Mona Lisa, many other paintings she dreamed about seeing. She talked to her friends about one day going to see this in person, but when the opportunity came, she spent her time in the gift shop, looking at imitations, wasting all her time gazing at things that were not even a close impression of the real thing. If you take nothing from my message today, don't miss this. Do not spend your time in the gift shop. Don't let the day pass you by where you don't acknowledge and spend time in relationship with Jesus Christ. Turn your gaze from the cheap imitations that the world offers and leaves us feeling empty. Spend your lives on making Jesus the King of each and every day and build and sow into his kingdom. So I want to spend the last part of my message just switching our dream. We're all very used to dreaming of that dream retirement, of sitting on the lake on a hot day, having this mansion behind me. It comes easy and naturally to most of us. And honestly, don't hear me saying that these desires are inherently evil. It's okay to dream of not working so hard one day. It's okay to dream about spending more time with the relationships that matter most to you. I didn't come up here to paint a picture that retirement's bad. Putting it another way, it's okay to spend some time in the gift shop. I would rather us think and dream about a rich relationship with God and actually experiencing what that looks like. What's the picture? Where can we put ourselves in that dream relationship, rich relationship with God? What is Jesus trying to tell this brother that he's missing, that he's trading a whole life pursuit for something that he's going to miss? So a few questions I want you to ask yourselves. Would I consider myself in a rich relationship with God? I want you to ask yourself that this morning. Are you one that Jesus would say, you're trading pursuing the gift shop when you could have this rich relationship with me? And what does this rich relationship look like? First thing, I think a rich relationship with God looks like, James 4:8 says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. God reveals himself, draws near to one group of people exclusively. I think Jeff shared this in his series in Leviticus, is those who draw near to him, God will draw near to. That's who he draws near to, those who are drawn near to him. God reveals himself, draws near to that group of people who are pursuing him. So I think this passage honestly really ends right in the same spot as the book of Leviticus. Are you drawing near to God? Are you pursuing that relationship with him? The second thing that I think specifically in this passage, this brother, the rich fool was missing in the parable, is to dream big dreams with God, not by yourself. The fact that this guy was rich wasn't what made him a fool. The last line of Jesus' parable says, but does not have a rich relationship with God. And I really wonder how this parable would have ended if, right in the middle of it, instead of the rich man talking to himself throughout this parable, I wonder, like, when the crops were good, like he had these small barns and he had these nice crops and he was at this dilemma, and he had a decision to make right there. I wonder how the parable would have ended if the rich man would have got on his knees and said, God, thank you so much. Thank you for the crops. Thank you for the rain that you've given us this year. Now, what are we going to do? I think the parable would have gone totally different had he just dreamed this dream with God. Maybe God would have built him big barns in just the same way. Maybe. But maybe God would have used him to be a blessing to others. That's what that's the way God often works. But when I dream of a rich relationship with God, I dream of being a blessing to others and dreaming big dreams with him, not by myself. And the last thing is being a blessing to others. I've heard it said we are conduits, not containers, that God uses us and pours into us so that we can pour into others, not just so we can hold it. One thing you will notice in this parable is the rich man is alone. He's talking to himself. I had to reread this passage a couple of times, and I'm like, who's he talking to? He's talking to himself. But I think part of this whole thing is having a rich relationship with God is inviting others into our circles, listening to the Spirit leading you to understand the person maybe you don't want to be around, listening to the Spirit telling you who you can be a blessing to today. It's being a blessing and a conduit to others. When I dream of a rich relationship with God, I dream of being a blessing to others. So I want to extend an invitation for everyone here this morning to draw near to God, to dream instead of dreaming of that dream retirement. I want to extend an invitation to dream of what does it look like to have a rich relationship with God, and how can I get there? He really is all you will ever need. He will take care of you. He will use you. Dream of a retirement and adventure with God. I don't think this man's retirement dream was bad. It was just so small compared to what God wanted to extend. It was just the gift shop. It was short-sighted and distracted. So I'm just going to end by saying we need Jesus. He's a good Father. He's a good God who will take care of us. Let's pray. Jesus, we just come before you and we wrestle with these words, with this parable that you shared with this brother, Lord, when you were on earth. Lord, and you saw right past what he was asking you, Lord, and you saw right to his heart where he was spending time in the gift shop, Lord. He was wasting his days and his hours on cheap imitations when you just want a rich relationship with us. God, I pray that you would help us to get a picture and even right now as we pray, Lord, I just pray that you would show us what it looks like to just have that rich relationship with you, Lord. I think of sitting in an armchair and just praying as an old man, Lord, and just trusting in you. Lord, I just pray that you would help us to pursue that for all we're worth. We pray this in all your name. Amen.
Amen.